Hello, everybody. It's your daily update with your friend Angry Tim. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about tipping. Uh, this is an article from Yahoo Finance. Tip or not to tip? And this is coming out of the Hawaii food industry workers. So, I grew up in Hawaii, so I'm a little familiar with this. Um, Basically, what they say is okay, this is kind of how they break it down if you work at a hotel or somewhere. The standard tip most servers recommend is between 15 and 20% for adequate service, 20% or more for exceptional service. Bar service, a common tip is $1 to $2 per drink, or the same percentage as the food service. Ride sharing like Uber and Lyft, 10 to 20% tip. Um, and another area where there's a lot of debate is like, do you tip everywhere? Like uh, fast food type places. Sometimes you just go to a local bakery, maybe you buy some bread and a pastry, and then when it comes, they just grab it behind the counter, and when it's time to pay, the tip screen pops up. So Ernest Lee, in this article, says if I am standing ordering my meal and I get my meal and go to sit down, then typically it's not tipped. So that makes a lot of sense, right? If you have to walk up to a counter, order your food, and then they hand you your hamburger or what and whatnot, and you take this and you sit down, um, yeah, I don't think you should have to tip for that. But yeah, that tipping culture, I think it's getting out of control right now. It's everywhere. Every time you buy anything from anyone, that tip screen pops up. You want to go and buy some bagels, you want to add 5, 10, 15, 20% tip, on your $4 bagel. Um, this is funny because in Hawaii, we have a lot of a lot of Asian tourists there, and they don't have the tipping culture there. So that was always a big deal, like at the hotels, because if you were one of the hotel workers or their tour guide or whatnot, they always made it a point. You had to explain to them like, oh, in America, every night leave like $1 or $2 under your pillow per person, for the maid service or the valet or the bellhop. You want to give a couple of dollars per suitcase, or if they went golfing, basically you had to tell them, you tip these people, a couple of dollars for every little thing you do. So they always, so these tourists would always have a bunch of ones, and they just to tip every time they left the hotel room. They had to tip, everyone they talked to basically. Um, so it was kind of funny, and because they didn't have it in their culture, it's kind of a weird thing to explain to them. Like they don't understand, like why isn't it included? If you go to a restaurant, they price everything out. You want to buy a steak, salad, soup, and whatnot. It might be $20, but then like isn't that the price for the food? Like shouldn't that include everything? The server and the chef. But on top of that, you gotta leave another 20%. Um, so yeah, it's kind of an American thing, I guess. It's not so popular, um, I think, in other countries. I went and I kind of tried to figure out where did this whole tipping culture come from. Um, and this is what I found online. They say the origins of tipping, it started in feudal Europe, where aristocrats would give extra money to servants for good service. And in the mid 1800s, wealthy Americans traveling to Europe brought the practice back to the US, eager to mimic European customs. So I guess in the United States, the mid 1800s, so the 1850s or so, um, rich Americans would do what the Europeans were doing, and they kind of started this tipping culture. It said post Civil War, after the Civil War, employers in the hospitality industry, particularly those hiring new freed slaves, used tipping as a way to avoid paying taxes. Or, sorry, paying wages. This allowed them to pay low wages and rely on tips for the bulk of workers' income. Initially, many Americans viewed tipping as a undemocratic and un-American um, thing. However, this practice became more accepted over time, especially during Prohibition, when it helped businesses manage wages. Modern day tipping is deeply ingrained in American culture, though it remains a topic of debate due to its historical ties to racial oppression and economic exploitation. So man, okay. Uh, yeah, I wonder, what do you think about this when, the, like, especially restaurants, they pay the servers next to nothing, right? So, that's supposed to bring the food cost down. So they make the customers tip well to cover the wages, of their workers. So, uh, that can kind of go both ways. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, yeah, you want the workers to be paid well, but isn't that the responsibility of the business owner? I don't own a restaurant, but if I ever started a restaurant, I would just pay my workers well, and I would accept no tips. I would make a no tipping restaurant. I don't feel, I mean, if someone wanted to tip, that would be a real tip. That would actually be someone saying, "Hey, that was excellent, excellent service." Whoever was serving them and they left a 20, that's great, but I would make it a no tipping restaurant. Like, if my steak dinner was 20 bucks, it's 20 bucks plus tax, you're done. Just like anything else. If you came in my store and bought a t-shirt for 20 bucks, it's 20 bucks, you're done, plus tax. So I would run and I would, price everything in such a way that that was the price. You just walk in that way. I don't know. It's kind of like it lost its meaning because the tip is now expected. So even if you get bad service, you feel bad, right? You go to a restaurant, like, who actually leaves no tip? Even if I get bad service, I still got to leave something, maybe 15%, not 20% or more. Um, but it's kind of like you're always having to leave tip, no matter what the service is. But if you said there was no tipping, the price is included in the cost of your meal, you know, and then someone leaves you 5 or 10 bucks, that's something that would mean that, yeah, you did a very good job, and maybe that's how it should be. But I think these restaurants, I mean, we're paying the extra anyway, right? If it's a $20 steak and you got to end up paying 20% tip on that, that's like another $4. They're really paying $24, right? I mean, maybe his costs are a little better because he can hide wages and whatnot, but he's paying whatever he's paying his workers. But then we got to pay an additional 20%. So everyone that day had to pay an extra 20%. So what does the average restaurant do? How many tables? I don't know exactly, but let's say someone has let let's say they wait 50 tables a day, and the average bill is $50. So if you have to leave 20% on $50, that's $10. And if they have, that's a lot of money. If they had 50 tables and they got $10 from each table, that uh, waiter waitress made $500 that day in tips, right? So I don't know. Maybe, I mean, maybe it is a good thing for the waiters and waitresses, but I don't see why. I would just have it where the business, it was all included in the price, and I wouldn't make the customers have to pay the wages. Um, is that really, because you would think you'd be getting very good service everywhere you went, right? Everywhere you had to tip someone, but it seems like they just kind of, they throw the food on a table, the food comes out cold, whatever. It's like you get Denny's service everywhere. Even Denny's expects a tip. So it's like, I don't know. I'd rather have just no tipping, and then I just tip the people who deserve it. And if that's the workers, that's the cost, the business owner's cost. Let them deal with it. Don't pass that on to me. Some workers do not deserve a tip, and not every bagel shop and cookie store, not every, the person who grabs a bagel and says, "Here, and where's my 20% tip?" Like, I don't think so. So anyway, that's my little rant about that. Um, so Yeah. So anyway, let me know what you think about the tipping culture. If you're not from the U.S., do you have a tipping culture where you live? And if you are from the U.S., do you like that? Would you rather go to a restaurant where there is no tipping? You know, the price is it's all inclusive. You know that is the $20 steak dinner is it's $20, no tip, and that covers labor and all whatever expenses the owner has to cover. Um, I'm kind of over it. I mean, I grew up in Hawaii, so I was in a tourism industry, and it's kind of if you want to tip someone, it shouldn't be expected, but if your taxi fare is $50, just $50. Unless he's amazing, you know, why do you have to pay him anything extra? Um, to me, it's just ridiculous because a lot of these people, they don't do anything special. They're rude. They don't talk to you. But then, after your $50 fare, they're expecting another 20% tip, right? It's like, and then now if you don't tip that 20%, you're a cheapskate or, whatever. It's on you, right? Because he didn't do anything exceptional to deserve a 20% tip on top of his $50 fare. But when you don't pay it, it's like you're the bad guy, right? So it's like all these restaurants, there's a lot of bad restaurants out there where the service is horrible, they just suck, but they expect that 20% tip every time you walk in the door. And I don't think they deserve it. Um, so personally, I would love to just do away with the whole tipping system, just have it included in the price. And if someone does a good job, yeah, they deserve a tip. But you know what? 99% of these people, they don't deserve it. So that's all I got for you today. Let me know what you think in the comments. Your friend, Angry Tim.